In a world where animals race to be the fastest, loudest, sneakiest, or just flat-out weirdest, the rhinoceros decided, nah, I'm good, and just became a living boulder with attitude issues.
Covered in armor, shaped like a prehistoric battering ram, and with the social skills of a grumpy grandpa who just wants to be left alone, the rhino is what happens when evolution says, let's just make a tank with legs and give it a horn or two. But to truly understand this thick-skinned mystery on legs, we have to rewind the evolutionary VHS tape. Way back, and I mean way back, rhinos weren't the only prehistoric bruisers stomping the earth. Millions of years ago, during the Eocene epoch, around 50 million years ago, their ancestors were actually dainty little hoofed creatures. Yep, the rhino started off as a tiny forest critter. No horn, no bulk, no rage issues. Just a small innocent herbivore probably frolicking through leaves and pretending it wouldn't someday become nature's armored wrecking ball. Then the Earth got a little spicy. Climate changes, shifting continents, evolving predators. Basically the worst group project in history. And like that one quiet kid who suddenly comes back after summer break ripped and brooding, the rhino emerged from evolutionary chaos as a walking juggernaut. Muscles for days, skin thick enough to mock thorns and bites, and a horn. Yes, please. One big horn for jabbing, flipping, and occasionally poking tourists who get too close. But rhinos weren't alone in this glow-up. Enter the elephant, the only other land creature with the same megafauna vibe. Elephants and rhinos may not be direct cousins. Rhinos are more closely related to tapirs and horses, but they share something deeper. The ancient megafauna DNA that screams, I existed before it was cool. While cheetahs were perfecting speed and leopards were learning to sneak, rhinos and elephants were like, we'll just walk through everything, thanks. And they did. These animals were the architects of their environment. Rhinos shaped the savanna with their weight alone. Their movement carved paths, flattened grasslands, and bulldozed their way through forests. Elephants tore down trees. Rhinos stomped down shrubs. And between the two of them, they basically did aggressive landscaping for the entire continent. But not all rhinos made it through the evolutionary Hunger Games. Many of their relatives went extinct, leaving behind fossils that are either terrifying or hilarious depending on your mood. Take the woolly rhino, for example, the shaggy horned beast of the Ice Age that looked like a yak who went to the gym too much. These Ice Age chonks roamed the freezing steppes of Europe and Asia, grazing like frostbitten bulldozers. With two massive horns and a fur coat that screamed mammoth's drinking buddy, they were the dominant tanks of the tundra, until they weren't. Climate change and spear-happy humans gave them the ultimate cold shoulder. And that's the twist in this tale. Rhinos are survivors, yes, but they're also relics. Every time you see a rhino, you're looking at a ghost of prehistory, a survivor of extinctions. The last chapter in a book that's been torn page by predators, environment, and humans with bad ideas. Today's rhinos, black, white, Indian, Javan, and Sumatran, are the final members of an ancient club. They carry the scars of millennia, armor-plated skin made of collagen fibers so thick and rugged it can take a lion bite like it's a love tap. Their horns, made of keratin, the same stuff as your fingernails, are both their crown and their curse. Because while rhinos never asked for a spotlight, humans decided that powdered horn is somehow an aphrodisiac. And so began the greatest tragedy in the rhino's already dramatic life, being hunted for what is essentially overpriced toenail dust. But back to the comedy, because rhinos are also weird. Despite looking like medieval war machines, they're hilariously nearsighted. They often charge at shadows, trees, rocks, or anything that might possibly be a threat. Basically, rhinos live their lives in constant paranoia, which is fair when you have to dodge poachers, lions, and the occasional confused tourist. And don't be fooled by their clunky look. These beasts can run up to 30 miles per hour. That's faster than a human sprint, and frankly too fast for something that looks like it's made of armored ham. Imagine being chased by a sofa that's angry and faster than you. That's a rhino. Also, ever heard one scream? Rhinos make a bizarre mix of sounds. Grunts, bellows, honks, even squeals that sound like a rubber toy being squeezed by a gorilla. Their communication is chaotic. Their bathroom habits are territorial. They poop in huge piles to mark land, like mine. And they regularly roll in mud baths like spa addicts with attitude problems. These aren't just wild animals. They're full-blown personalities in hide armor. They're also loners. Rhinos prefer to be left alone unless it's time to mate or fight.
Black rhinos are especially known for their short temper, long horn approach to social interaction. White rhinos are more chill, often found in small groups, but even they look like they'd rather be home watching grass grow. Social butterflies? No.
Solitary tanks with poor eyesight and anger issues?
Absolutely. And through all of this, the evolution, the near misses with extinction, the fashionably late entry into modern conservation, rhinos are still here. Barely.
Hanging on by a horn and a hope. They are ancient survivors wearing prehistoric armor, standing defiant in a modern world that's forgotten how to respect old souls.
Every wrinkle in their skin is a story.
Every charge is a warning.
Every lazy mud roll is a celebration that, against all odds, they haven't given up. So when you look at a rhino, don't just see a big grumpy beast.
See a tank built by time itself, a relic from an age before humans ruled the world.
And maybe, just maybe, the last living reminder that nature doesn't always need to be sleek or smart. Sometimes it just needs to be unstoppable. If you've ever looked at a rhino and thought, oh, what a gentle, peaceful giant, then congratulations. You've been lied to by every cartoon and soft-focused nature documentary ever made, because beneath that thick skin and slow plodding walk lies the heart of a rage-fueled gladiator. Rhinos are not the stoic monks of the savannah. They are battle-hardened, highly territorial, horn-wielding psychos with the patience of a toddler on espresso. And they don't just dislike intruders. They will chase, gore, and bulldoze anything that smells like competition. Out in the wild, territory is everything. It's your dinner plate, your dating profile, your fortress, and your flex all rolled into one. And for rhinos, especially the solitary black rhino, it's a sacred zone.
Woe to the fool, rhino or otherwise, who crosses that invisible line.
Male black rhinos in particular are known for their short temper and explosive violence. Their encounters with rival males aren't polite chess matches. They're messy, horn-clashing, bone-crunching cage matches where the goal is simple: destroy or be destroyed. These battles can last for hours, fueled not by logic but by ego, testosterone, and territorial fury. During mating season, the violence scales up like a nature documentary directed by Quentin Tarantino. Males will stalk females with an awkward, sweaty intensity, sometimes harassing them for days before getting the chance to mate. If another male steps in, oh, now it's personal. Horns are lowered, earth is kicked up, and suddenly two prehistoric tanks are colliding in a dust cloud of fury, blood, and pride. These aren't bluff charges. Rhinos are fully committed. They slam into each other like wrecking balls with a grudge, aiming for the flanks, the thighs, the guts. Any soft spot they can jab with their oversized nail horn. The damage, oh, it's real. Deep puncture wounds, shattered bones, and sometimes death. It's estimated that up to 50% of male black rhinos die from these fights. That's not a typo. Half of them. If humans followed that pattern, you'd lose half your friends just trying to ask someone out. It's brutal, raw, and entirely normal in the world of the rhino. But rhinos aren't the only angry herbivores roaming the plains. Let's talk about buffaloes, Africa's grumpiest tanks with hooves. Cape buffaloes are like rhinos' angrier, more paranoid cousins. They may not have the horn elegance of a rhino, but they compensate with numbers, mood swings, and a trust-no-one attitude. While rhinos fight alone, buffaloes roll deep, moving in herds that can number in the hundreds. And when threatened, they don't run. They circle, they snort, and they prepare to launch a full-on counterattack. Lions. Forget stealth. A wrong move near a buffalo herd, and they'll find themselves chased, trampled, and tossed sky-high like rag dolls at a rodeo. Then there's the hippopotamus, the aquatic warlord of Africa. Hippos spend most of their time floating in water like oversized bath toys, yawning dramatically as if bored by existence. But don't be fooled by their squishy appearance. Hippos are responsible for more human deaths in Africa than lions, leopards, or crocodiles. Their jaws can snap a canoe in half. Their teeth are the size of bananas and about as friendly. And like rhinos, hippos are very serious about territory. Male hippos patrol their watery kingdoms with the same energy as nightclub bouncers on steroids. Intruders are met with charges, bite attacks, and sometimes high-speed water chases that look like torpedoes coming at you with legs. What's fascinating is how all three of these beasts, rhinos, buffaloes, and hippos, are herbivores. Yes, leaf-eaters, these aren't predators, they're grazers. But nature gave them the size, strength, and anger issues of apex predators. Because when you live in a world with lions, hyenas, and wild dogs, being peaceful is not an option. Defense becomes offense. And make no mistake, lions, the so-called kings of the savannah, absolutely stalk rhinos, but not just any rhino. Adult rhinos are mostly off-limits, unless a lion wants to play who can get trampled first. But rhino calves? Those are prime targets. Vulnerable, slower, and with softer skin, calves are the weak link. And lions, ever the opportunists, will stalk them relentlessly, especially the younger males in a pride, the ones with something to prove and nothing to lose. But here's where it gets spicy. Rhino mums don't mess around. A lion approaching a calf is like a drunk guy poking a sleeping bear. The mother rhino will launch into an immediate berserker rage, charging with zero hesitation. Lions are fast, yes, but when a rhino hits full speed, nearly 40 miles per hour, it's like being chased by a refrigerator doing parkour. The sound alone, the thundering hooves, the snorts, the sheer mass barreling toward you, it's enough to make even a lion question his life choices. Some pride interactions have ended with rhino mothers chasing off entire lion groups, scattering them like school kids caught breaking windows. Others have resulted in lions being gored, flung into the air, or run down like unfortunate squirrels. And it's not just about protection. These defensive rages are strategic. Rhinos know their power, and they aren't afraid to make examples out of the foolish. But this aggression, this unrelenting fury, isn't just for survival. It's also baked into rhino psychology. In captivity, male rhinos often need to be separated or carefully introduced, or they'll immediately go full WWE. Even their reactions to zookeepers, unfamiliar scents, or reflective surfaces can range from nervous pacing to full-blown wall charges. Rhinos are like medieval knights with anger management issues, constantly on the edge of, "I'll smash that just in case." This explosive behavior, while dangerous, is part of what makes the rhino so fascinating. It's an animal designed for war, yet destined for peace. A grazer, not a hunter. Its life is about defending, not attacking. But because its world is violent, because competitors lurk in every thicket and predators stalk the weak, the rhino lives in a constant state of readiness. Its body is armor. Its horn is a sword. And its attitude is, "Try me." So next time someone calls rhinos gentle giants, remember the truth. Rhinos are the fury of the grasslands, the armored enforcers of their domain. They fight for land, for mates, for calves, and sometimes just because something looked at them funny. In the great savannah soap opera, they are not side characters. They are main stage front row chaos, stomping through the storyline with horn raised high and rage in their hearts, because peace was never an option. In the vast theater of the African wilderness, where drama unfolds at every sunrise, and someone is always either chasing, hiding, mating, or pretending not to be lunch, there exists one rare moment of uneasy peace. The waterhole gathering. A place where enemies lower their horns, predators resist temptation, and prey take the boldest sip of their lives. It's nature's version of a ceasefire, not because everyone suddenly found inner peace, but because dehydration is a stronger motivator than murder. Rhinos, despite their armored, "don't mess with me" exterior, are regular attendees of this peace summit. They're big, thirsty, and frankly too lazy to dig their own 5-star water bar, so they roll into these shared pools like grumpy VIPs crashing a public beach. And as they stomp down the dusty path toward the shimmering puddle of life, they're not alone. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is there. Zebras prance in with their black and white anxiety. Giraffes awkwardly fold their legs in the most undignified yoga pose known to mammals. Warthogs trot in, snorting like someone left a vacuum on, their tails sticking straight up like faulty antennae. It's like a wildlife school reunion, and no one really wants to be there. Each animal approaches with suspicion. Every step is measured. Every eye is watching. Because in a place where survival is the main game, peace feels unnatural. But thirst trumps fear, and so they gather. The waterhole becomes the savannah's most bizarre social experiment, a temporary détente, enforced not by treaties but by shared desperation. Rhinos, in this scenario, act like grizzled old generals who've seen too much war. They don't play nice, but they don't pick fights either. Not unless someone invades their personal space, which for a rhino is about the size of a football field. They stride in, massive and moody, the ground trembling beneath them. Other animals take one look and subtly shuffle sideways. It's not that rhinos are actively aggressive. It's just that no one wants to find out what happens if they do get annoyed. Their horn might be made of keratin, like fingernails, but it operates like a medieval weapon of mass flipping. Zebras, meanwhile, are the jittery drama queens of the scene. Always alert, always suspicious, always sure something is about to go terribly wrong. They twitch at every movement, eye every shadow, and drink with heads popping up every 3 seconds like they're playing whack-a-mole. And for good reason. A trip to the waterhole is like entering a casino. There's a chance you'll win hydration, but there's also a chance you'll be eaten. Giraffes. Oh, bless them. These skyscraper herbivores spend 10 minutes just figuring out how to lower their necks far enough to take a sip without collapsing. Watching a giraffe drink is like witnessing a controlled demolition in slow motion. They spread their legs wide, bend at the knees, and crane their necks down like a faulty construction crane. It's deeply awkward and biologically inefficient, which makes them prime targets for predators. Every second they spend drinking is a second they can't run, kick, or look remotely graceful. Warthogs bring the comedy, of course. These pint-sized piglets of panic trot in like they own the place, then realize halfway through that they absolutely do not. They snort, roll, splash, and suddenly remember lions exist, at which point they flee in all directions, usually in pairs, and usually screaming like a haunted kettle. But they return, always, because warthogs have short memories and no pride. Just thirst. Now here's where it gets spicy. Despite the temporary peace, the waterhole is a cauldron of tension. You can feel it in the air, a collective breath being held. Lions could be watching from the brush. Crocodiles could be lurking just beneath the surface. And even among the herbivores, grudges are simmering. One zebra steps too close to a rhino's shadow, and suddenly everyone's looking sideways. A giraffe accidentally flicks a warthog with its tail, and the whole crowd flinches. This isn't peace. It's a hostage situation where no one wants to be the first to blink. The funniest part, everyone pretends like this is normal. Rhinos drink with snorts, occasionally flicking mud at smaller animals with an accidental, or maybe not so accidental, stomp. Giraffes shuffle around like malfunctioning cranes. Zebras fart nervously and stare into the distance like they're in a soap opera. It's the animal kingdom's version of an awkward family dinner, and the waterhole is the overcooked turkey holding them together. But then comes the twist. One day all it takes is a single misstep. A young male rhino, full of hormones, pride, and absolutely no self-awareness, decides he wants to assert dominance. He lowers his horn, puffs his breath, and charges. Not at a rival, not even at a predator, but at a tree that was minding its business. The sound of that crash is enough to scatter everyone like popcorn. Zebras bolt in zigzags. Warthogs squeal and disappear into burrows they forgot they even dug. And giraffes do this weird panicked skip that looks like a runway model who's had one too many espressos. This is how quickly peace evaporates. One twitch, one snort, one flared nostril, and the whole fragile truce collapses. The waterhole becomes a stampede zone. Dust clouds rise. Birds scream overhead. And the rhino? He casually walks back to the water, unbothered, satisfied, and vaguely confused why everyone is so dramatic. He takes a sip, snorts, and plops himself in the mud like nothing happened. Because for him, this is normal. This is Tuesday. But this chaos, as ridiculous as it seems, serves a deeper function. The waterhole isn't just about hydration. It's about communication, power, hierarchy, and instinct. Every animal here is reading signals, watching movement, calculating risks. It's a real-time performance of survival where everyone's an actor, a viewer, and a potential victim. And in this twisted ballet of balance, the rhino stands as both peacekeeper and warmonger, respected, feared, and never ignored. In fact, researchers have observed that rhinos often act as environmental engineers. Their paths to waterholes create trails used by smaller species. Their wallowing creates mud pools that help other animals cool off or fend off parasites. Even their poop, yes, even the poop, is vital. Rhinos create communal dung piles called middens, which serve as territory markers and messaging boards for other rhinos. It's like a giant stinky group chat. Steve was here. Smells like grass. Probably single. Let's fight later. So despite the snorts and stomps and social awkwardness, the waterhole is where the savannah's silent agreements are made. It's where chaos flirts with calm. It's where enemies pause their feuds long enough to survive. And it's where the rhino, the reluctant diplomat of the wild, becomes an accidental symbol of uneasy coexistence. But remember, the truce ends the moment thirst is quenched. Once bellies are full and necks stretch skyward, the old rules return. Territory is claimed. Horns are raised. Shadows become threats again. The waterhole empties, and the wilderness returns to its regularly scheduled program of chase, fight, and flee. Until tomorrow, when they all come back. Because in the savannah, even chaos needs a water break. Forget everything you think you know about crime lords and underworld cartels. Because while Hollywood glamorizes mobsters with cigars and gold chains, The real kingpins of destruction operate in silence, in shadows, in the savannah. And they're not even animals. They're humans with guns, machetes, and the worst business ideas in the history of conservation. Welcome to the blood-soaked world of the rhino horn black market, a twisted empire where one stupid myth has turned an ancient creature into a walking ATM. Rhinos, bless them, have no idea they're caught in a multi-billion-dollar war. They're just trying to live their tank-like lives, graze, nap, roll in mud, charge at suspicious bushes. But their horn, that proud spike of keratin atop their snouts, has been branded the most absurd luxury item since someone decided gold-plated toilet paper was a good idea. In parts of Asia, especially Vietnam and China, rhino horn is believed to be a miracle cure for everything from hangovers to cancer to impotence. Yes, impotence, because nothing says revive my love life like snorting powdered toenail. That's right. Rhino horn is made of keratin, the same stuff in your hair and fingernails, which means if you're chewing your nails while watching this documentary, congratulations. You've already had a free sample. And guess what? It doesn't cure anything. At best, it's overpriced protein. At worst, it's the reason rhinos are bleeding out across Africa and Asia. But let's rewind. This isn't just about one silly belief. This is about a massive black market, a web of corruption that snakes from rural African bushlands to glittering Asian penthouses. It begins with the poacher, usually someone desperate, armed with nothing but a rusty AK-47, a cell phone, and a payday dream. Many poachers aren't hardened criminals. They're villagers coerced or seduced into killing a rhino for quick cash, offered more money than they'd make in years of farming. They know it's illegal. They know it's dangerous. But when a rhino horn can sell for $60,000 per kilo, morality becomes a luxury. These poachers often work at night, tracking rhinos by moonlight, using silence and speed to strike. The most chilling part? They don't always shoot to kill. Sometimes they tranquilize the rhino, then hack off its horn while it's still alive. Yes, you heard that right. A living creature, breathing, bleeding, writhing in silent agony as it's mutilated for its magical nose bone. Some survive, but most die from blood loss, infection, or sheer trauma. It's like watching a murder with no villain on screen, just greed in its purest, ugliest form. Once the horn is cut, the smuggling begins. Enter the middlemen, the smugglers and traffickers who move this illegal loot through fake cargo, diplomatic pouches, even inside statues or electronics. It's a logistical nightmare for law enforcement because these people don't wear ski masks and shout, "Freeze!" They wear suits, bribe officials, and pass through airport security with the calm of seasoned businessmen. Their warehouses are full of not just rhino horn, but ivory, pangolin scales, tiger bones, bear bile, and other products from the animal kingdom's suffering. If Disney characters had a hell, this would be it. The end buyers? Usually wealthy elites who want to show off their status, or those who genuinely believe rhino horn is traditional medicine. Some grind it into powder for consumption. Others carve it into ornate dagger handles, trophies, or statues. In some cultures, gifting someone a rhino horn is the equivalent of saying, "You've made it, you're powerful, you're special." Which is ironic, considering the gift is literally a death sentence shaped into decor. But rhinos aren't the only victims of this delusional demand. The black market is an equal opportunity destroyer. Pangolins, for example, are the most trafficked mammals in the world, and most people don't even know what they are. Imagine an anteater dressed in medieval armor, waddling through the forest with zero idea that its scales are worth more than gold in some places. Pangolin scales, also keratin, are crushed for medicinal use, despite offering the same health benefits as licking your own elbow. Tigers are killed for their bones, skins, whiskers, even eyeballs. Their body parts are used in tiger wine, a bizarre status drink that allegedly boosts strength and virility. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. You're just sipping sadness with a hint of extinction. Meanwhile, bears are farmed for their bile, extracted through permanent holes in their abdomens. It's not just exploitation, it's industrialized torture. And here's the kicker. This underground economy is so profitable, it rivals drug and weapons trafficking. Rhino poaching is no longer just about a desperate hunter in the bush. It's backed by organized crime syndicates, deeply entrenched in global supply chains. The same people smuggling rhino horn might be moving guns, drugs, or humans on the side. It's a one-stop shop for crime, and wildlife is just the most innocent victim. But like every good mafia story, there are anti-heroes, the wildlife rangers, conservationists, and eco-detectives who risk their lives to protect animals from this carnage. These aren't khaki-wearing bird watchers. These are heavily armed, highly trained defenders who patrol vast reserves, track poacher movements, and sometimes engage in actual firefights. Some have been killed in the line of duty. Others work unpaid, fueled only by passion and the hope that future generations might still see a rhino in the wild instead of in a museum. Modern solutions are high-tech and full of innovation. Some parks are injecting rhino horns with pink dye and poison to make them useless to buyers. Others are 3D printing fake horns to flood the market and crash the price. There's even talk of horn farming, where rhinos are sedated and their horns safely trimmed and regrown, like sheep shearing. Ethically questionable, sure. But in a world this messed up, some say it's better than extinction. But none of it matters if demand doesn't die. As long as someone, somewhere, believes in the mythical power of powdered rhino horn, this war continues. And rhinos, these ancient, armored, tragically majestic beasts, will keep dropping one by one at the hands of an invisible, greedy enemy. So next time you see a rhino, remember, it's not just a living tank, it's a survivor, a creature caught in the crossfire of humanity's worst impulses. And its horn? It's not a cure. It's not magic. It's not even special. It's just keratin. But to the bloodhorn mafia, it's worth killing for. If the African savannah had a gossip column, one of its most talked about power couples would be the rhino and the oxpecker. They're seen together constantly, never fight in public, and seem to have a working relationship that benefits both parties. At first glance, it's adorable. A massive prehistoric beast plodding through the bush with a tiny bird perched proudly on its back, like a miniature knight riding a living bulldozer. It's the kind of image that makes you believe in harmony, balance, and fairy tale partnerships. But like every reality TV relationship, there's a darker story behind the scenes. The oxpecker is a small, bright-eyed bird with a long, slightly curved beak and a very personal interest in large, dirty animals. It feeds on ticks, dead skin, earwax, blood, and the occasional chunk of exposed flesh. Its favorite snack bar, the rhino's backside. And while that sounds gross, and is, it plays an oddly important role in the rhino's day-to-day survival. These birds are nature's multitaskers, part pest control, part alarm system, and part bloodthirsty vampire with good marketing. Let's start with the good news. Rhinos, like many large mammals, are walking buffets for parasites. Their skin folds, wrinkles, and muddy habits make them ideal real estate for ticks and insects. Oxpeckers swoop in, perch confidently, and start picking off these freeloaders like sushi off a conveyor belt. They clean the ears, inspect the nostrils, and occasionally peck at open wounds. Not so much to heal as to feast. But hey, nobody's perfect. In return, the rhino gets a sort of itchy relief and a free spa treatment from a bird that never stops working. But the oxpecker's real contribution isn't its appetite, it's its paranoia. These birds are jumpy, loud, and have the kind of trust issues that would make a raccoon seem relaxed. If anything, and I mean anything, moves near a rhino, the oxpecker starts chirping, screeching, flapping, and essentially setting off a biological car alarm. And in a place where lions stalk quietly, hyenas skulk with patience, and poachers creep through shadows, this alarm system is pure gold. Studies have shown that rhinos with oxpeckers are significantly more alert to danger. In fact, when blindfolded researchers approached rhinos with and without oxpeckers, yes, that was a real study. And yes, the researchers had a death wish. The ones with birds were alerted almost twice as early. That's not intuition. That's outsourced paranoia. The bird gets to ride a tank, the tank gets free surveillance, and everyone wins. Sort of. Because here's the twist. While oxpeckers do remove ticks, they also have a nasty habit of reopening wounds to drink the blood. Yep, they're feathered vampires. They don't want the wound to heal. In fact, healing ruins their dinner plans. The longer the wound stays open, the longer the buffet stays open. This means the oxpecker isn't entirely a helpful friend. It's more like that roommate who pays rent, does the dishes, but also keeps stealing your leftovers and poking holes in the couch. So what are they then? Parasites? Allies? Freeloaders with good PR? The answer is yes. The oxpecker is all of those things, wrapped in feathers and sweet lies. And that makes them fascinating. But oxpeckers aren't the only animals involved in weird savanna buddy systems. The African wilderness is practically crawling with reluctant alliances and shady deals between species. Consider the classic example of crocodiles and plover birds. The croc lounges on the riverbank, jaws wide open, looking like a death machine on break. The little plover walks right up, hops into its mouth, and starts picking meat from between its teeth. In any other story, this ends with a crunch. But here, it ends with a cleaner croc and a well-fed bird. Everyone pretends not to notice how close they are to absolute betrayal. Then there's the zebra and wildebeest alliance, a perfect case of we don't like each other, but we'll die if we split up. Zebras are the map readers of the migration, great at navigating and locating water sources. Wildebeests, on the other hand, are basically panic on hooves, but they've got a stronger sense of smell and better hearing. Together they form a scrappy survival caravan. Zebras spot the way, wildebeests detect danger, and neither has to face lions alone. It's not friendship, it's functional fear management. Back to the rhino. Despite its solitary nature, the rhino benefits from these accidental relationships more than it admits. It doesn't have a built-in sonar system or the agility of a gazelle. It's a walking fortress, sure, but fortresses fall if you don't hear the siege coming. The oxpecker acts like an unpaid intern with caffeine anxiety, constantly scanning the horizon, warning of threats, and occasionally chewing on the boss. And believe it or not, rhinos have even been spotted near baboons, who use the same trails or sleep in nearby trees. Why? Because baboons are noise machines. Anything spooks them, and they scream like someone just cancelled Wi-Fi. This chaos, while deeply annoying, serves as a sort of sonic alarm for nearby animals, rhinos included. The baboons don't mean to help, they're just living their chaotic lives. But the rhino benefits anyway. Even the dung beetles play a role, albeit a strange one. These little janitors follow rhinos to feast on their poop, but in doing so, they help clean the trails, aerate the soil, and reduce parasite loads. So technically, even the rhino's poop has groupies. But perhaps the most underrated bodyguard role is played by rhino calves, not because they protect, but because they activate something primal in the mother rhino. A rhino mom is not a helicopter parent. She's a full-blown attack chopper with a vengeance complex. When a calf is present, the mother becomes hyper-aware, hyper-aggressive, and hyper-ready to flip anything that gets too close. In this way, the calf isn't a weak link. It's the trigger for the rhino's inner beast. Lions, leopards, hyenas, they all think twice when approaching a calf because mum isn't bluffing. And while these relationships, the oxpecker, the baboon, the dung beetle, the babbling calf, might seem accidental, they form an ecosystem of shared awareness. The rhino may walk alone, but it listens through others. It watches through borrowed eyes. Its survival isn't just brute force. It's community, chaos, and a little bit of trust in some very questionable partners. So the next time you see a rhino with a bird on its back, don't assume it's a peaceful moment of mutual respect. It's a tense negotiation between a grumpy tank and a bloodthirsty alarm system. It's evolution's version of a security guard that occasionally drinks your blood. It's survival, savannah style. Strange, messy, and just barely holding together. And in the wild, sometimes barely is good enough. In the vast, sun-scorched kingdoms of the African savannah, where every blade of grass whispers survival and every shadow holds a secret, the rhino moves like an ancient tank, steady, unstoppable, and terrifyingly calm. But even the toughest armor has its weak spots. Even the largest tanks can be cracked, especially when they come with a tiny, squishy, wide-eyed passenger trotting behind them on wobbly legs. Because the rhino calf, for all its chubby charm and floppy innocence, is the Achilles heel of an otherwise invincible beast. Let's be clear, a full-grown rhino is no one's snack. Not a lion, not a leopard, not even a coalition of hyenas with something to prove. Trying to take down an adult rhino is basically nature's version of throwing yourself at a concrete wall and hoping for lunch. But calves, that's a different story. A rhino calf is like a delicious dumpling wrapped in tragedy, and predators know it. To a hungry lioness or a desperate hyena pack, that baby rhino isn't cute. It's calories with training wheels. The first few months of a rhino's life are a terrifying game of don't get eaten, with the mother acting as both bodyguard and ballistic missile. A newborn calf is blind at birth, completely dependent, and so clueless it often walks headfirst into trees. It's basically a potato with legs and an expensive price tag. But that potato is fiercely protected by a mother whose emotional state hovers somewhere between over-caffeinated and mildly homicidal. Rhino moms don't do subtle. They don't do negotiation. They do one thing and one thing only: obliterate threats with violent efficiency. And there are plenty of threats. Lions are the first to show interest. These golden opportunists are the savannah's royalty, not because they rule with brute force, but because they know exactly when to strike, and more importantly, when not to. A single lion rarely dares to go after a calf, but a pride. That's a different beast entirely. A coordinated pride attack is less like a chase and more like a war plan. One lion distracts, another flanks, and the rest wait for chaos to do its work. If the calf is caught off guard, if the mother is even a few seconds too far, it can be over in a heartbeat. But catching a rhino calf isn't as easy as it sounds, because even when that calf looks vulnerable, its mother is always one twitch away from absolute carnage. Take, for example, the story passed around rangers in South Africa's Kruger National Park. A tale that begins like many others, with a pride of lions watching from a distance, crouched low in the grass, eyes locked on a plump, curious rhino calf sniffing a dung beetle with great interest. The calf had wandered a few meters too far, distracted by its own feet, as rhino calves often are. The lions saw their chance. The lead lioness slinked forward, slow and silent. A second began circling wide, her belly brushing the earth. The calf looked up, blinked, and turned. And in that instant, the mother moved. She didn't run. She launched. A thunderous burst of muscle and rage erupted from her hulking frame. Dust exploded beneath her feet. Her horn angled like a spear of the gods. The lioness didn't have time to blink before she was airborne, flipping in the most undignified feline cartwheel nature had ever choreographed. The others panicked. One tried to double back. Too late. The mother didn't stop. She charged again, roaring with a sound that didn't come from her mouth but from the deep, ancient engine inside her soul. It was the sound of prehistoric vengeance. She didn't just protect her calves, she humiliated her enemies. And when the dust cleared, the pride was gone. Scattered like leaves in a windstorm, one limping, one hiding, one reconsidering life choices. The calf, unfazed, wandered back to its mother, who casually resumed grazing like nothing had happened. Because for her, that wasn't rage. That was just parenting. But lions aren't the only ones lurking in the shadows. Hyenas, those toothy, cackling pranksters of the animal world, are even more dangerous in some ways. They don't need stealth. They rely on chaos. A hyena clan can number over 30 individuals, and when they move as a pack, they're less a hunting party and more a furry tidal wave of destruction. Their bite force is stronger than a lion's. Their stamina is unmatched, and their moral compass points firmly toward whatever works. Hyenas have been known to follow rhinos for days, waiting for the calf to stray, waiting for a moment of weakness. They don't launch heroic attacks. They mob. They harass. They test the boundaries of maternal wrath with the enthusiasm of drunk teenagers trying to tip a police car. But even they fear the fury of a charging rhino. A single mother can hold off a pack with nothing but grit, mass, and the kind of horn that turns rib cages into abstract art. Wild dogs, meanwhile, are the underrated assassins. Fast, coordinated, and absurdly determined, these painted wolves work as a unit, like a perfectly trained SWAT team. They don't go for big prey unless they know they have the numbers. But a lone rhino calf without protection, that's fair game. They'll use decoys to distract, others to flank, and the rest to close in with razor precision. But again, timing is everything. If the mother sees them coming, it's game over. No animal on Earth, no matter how bold, wants to be trampled by 1.5 tons of sprinting fury with the maternal instincts of a lioness on steroids. And here lies the beautiful tragedy of it all. Despite their bulk and brute strength, rhinos exist in a world where even they are not immune to danger. Their power means nothing without vigilance. Their armor means nothing without speed. And their legacy, passed from mother to calf, rests on a knife's edge, balanced between instinct and brutality. But that legacy is written in more than blood. It's written in moments, like the one in Kruger, where a mother's blind, explosive love becomes the final line between survival and extinction. It's written in the dusty footprints of calves who lived because their mothers charged lions with no hesitation. It's written in every stomp, snort, and fearless display of protective chaos. In the end, predators are just part of the savannah's rhythm. Lions, hyenas, dogs, they do what they must. But rhinos, they do what they refuse to let happen. They defend with a force so primal it shakes the earth. And every calf that grows up to stomp, grunt, and wallow in the mud is proof that even in a world of shadows, love, loud, muddy, and horned, still wins. The war for the rhino is not happening in distant jungles or fairy tale forests. It's here, now on the savannah, in the dead of night, in open fields that look peaceful by day and transform into war zones by moonlight. It's a war with no clear uniforms, no clear front lines, and no clear end, where one side carries guns and greed, and the other side defends with heart, grit, and a suspiciously well-trained German shepherd named Bullet. In this strange new war, Rhinos are the contested prize. They are not just animals anymore. They're targets, assets, and living symbols of everything worth saving. And while rhinos are the poster children of this fight, they're not the ones holding the weapons. That job falls to an army of human defenders. Rangers, scientists, drone pilots, canine handlers, and sometimes ex-military soldiers who swapped battlefields for bush trails. Gone are the days when conservation was a quiet walk in khakis with binoculars. Today, rhino protection is an extreme sport where you might step on a landmine of bureaucracy, corruption, or an actual trap set by poachers. Rangers now train like elite soldiers, running drills, learning ambush tactics, and sleeping with one eye open and the other on their GPS. Their job: track, protect, and if necessary, confront armed men who think of a rhino's horn not as biology, but as currency. In places like Kruger National Park, these rangers form elite anti-poaching units, armed with assault rifles, night vision scopes, and an unbreakable bond with their terrain. They operate more like military scouts than wildlife wardens. They know every ridge, every track, every bush that might conceal a poacher or, more terrifyingly, a rhino walking right into an ambush. They don't just chase shadows, they live in them. Some even camouflage themselves in leaves, waiting for hours in silence to intercept a horn thief. It's like watching nature's version of Mission: Impossible, only with more dust and fewer slow-motion explosions. But the fight isn't just muscle and bullets, it's gone high-tech too. Conservationists now deploy drones equipped with thermal cameras, scanning the savanna from above. These silent guardians buzz like mechanical wasps in the night sky, detecting movement, heat signatures, and even hidden camps. One twitch in the tall grass, and a drone relays a GPS tag to ground teams who respond like special forces. Some even drop tiny parachute sensors that attach to poachers' boots without them knowing, turning criminals into their own trackers. And then come the heroes with fur, the canine units. Don't be fooled by their wagging tails. These dogs are the Navy SEALs of the animal kingdom. Trained in scent detection, tracking, and sometimes even aerial rappelling, yes, you read that right, they can sniff out rhino horn from a locked suitcase at an airport, or follow a poacher's trail through miles of brush with laser focus. Dogs like Killer, Savannah, and Bullet have become legends in conservation circles. They don't bark at butterflies or chase frisbees. They take down traffickers with the same enthusiasm most dogs reserve for squirrels. And behind every dog is a handler who would take a bullet for them. These rangers form bonds deeper than most marriages, because out there, in the middle of nowhere, trust isn't optional. It's the difference between catching a poacher or becoming another casualty in a war nobody officially declared. But let's not romanticize this too much. The war is brutal. Rangers die. In some countries, more rangers are killed each year than soldiers in active military conflict. They are ambushed, shot, poisoned, or even betrayed from within by corrupt officials. Some rangers operate without pay for months, surviving on dedication and canned beans. Their families face threats. Their children grow up with the sound of gunfire instead of lullabies. And yet they stay, because someone has to. In many places, conservation has turned to fortresses. Massive reserves are now ringed with electric fences, motion detectors, and surveillance towers that wouldn't look out of place at a high-security prison. Inside these walls roam the last safe rhinos and elephants, animals who now live like VIPs in lockdown, with round-the-clock guards and GPS ankle bracelets. Some rhinos even have their horns preemptively removed, trimmed in controlled environments to make them less attractive to poachers. It's a cruel irony. Mutilate them to save them. Like removing a treasure map tattoo so no one digs up your garden. Inside these secure zones, conservationists run sophisticated operations, darting rhinos for medical checks, drawing blood for DNA databases, and logging every movement into cloud servers. There are even rhino IVF programs, where sperm is flown across continents like a very awkward airline passenger, in the hopes of reviving extinct subspecies through test tube miracles. But not all rhinos are lucky enough to live behind fences. Outside the walls, in fragmented habitats and community lands, poachers still stalk. Some are desperate locals. Others are part of organized crime syndicates that traffic wildlife like narcotics. These syndicates don't just kill animals, they buy off judges, blackmail politicians, and bribe their way through customs. When a poacher is caught, another takes their place. When a horn is seized, 10 more are already en route to the black market. And still the rangers rise, still the dogs run, still the drones fly. But this war comes at a cost far beyond bullets. Communities near reserves often feel left out or pushed aside. Their cattle trample park fences, Their crops are raided by elephants. They see money flowing into conservation, but little trickling into their own lives. And if someone in the village is recruited by poachers, it's often because feeding a family today outweighs saving a rhino tomorrow. This is the hidden front of the rhino war, the human cost. Conservation without community becomes colonization. Real solutions require trust, jobs, education, and the very thing that can't be poached or bought: hope. Thankfully, some programs are doing it right. In Kenya, community conservancies are giving locals ownership over wildlife protection. In Namibia, former poachers are now game wardens. In Zimbabwe, school programs teach children to value rhinos not as horn on legs, but as living legacies. It's not easy, it's not perfect, but it's working. So what does victory even look like? It's not just numbers ticking up on a rhino population chart. It's a day when the rangers can put down their rifles, when the dogs can chase tennis balls instead of crime, when drones can go silent, and the only buzzing is from flies annoying a sunbathing rhino in peace. It's a future where horns stay on faces, not shelves, where the rhino isn't a headline, just an animal living, stomping, snorting and rolling in mud. But until then, the new rhino wars rage on, not with tanks or planes, but with boots, paws and wings. And somewhere out there, under a blood-orange sky, a rhino mother nudges her calf toward water, while a ranger watches from the trees, rifle in hand, heart on fire, ready to protect for one more night. The grasslands of Africa, once a living symphony of thunderous hooves, distant roars, and the rhythmic grunt of colossal beasts moving across the earth, are starting to go quiet. It's not immediate. It's not dramatic. There's no siren, no red blinking light, no cinematic finale where nature screams, "The end." No, extinction is quieter than you think. It begins with fewer footprints, shorter trails in the dust, and one less shadow under the sun. Eventually, what was once an ecosystem becomes a ghost town, filled not with the living but with echoes. And few animals have left behind echoes as large and oddly shaped as the rhino. Once upon a prehistoric time, rhinos were everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Asia, Europe, Africa, even woolly versions strutting across Ice Age tundras like shaggy tanks with temperature issues. They came in all shapes and sizes, from the hornless oddballs to the two-horned juggernauts. But fast forward a few million years, add humans, and voila! Now we're down to 5 species, and nearly all of them are hanging on like the last Jenga block in a game played by drunk toddlers. Let's start with the Western Black Rhino, shall we? A subspecies of the black rhino, it once roamed the savannas and woodlands of Central West Africa like a velvet wrecking ball. Stocky, solitary, and delightfully grumpy, it was just trying to live its leafy, herbivorous life. But somewhere along the line, it got caught in the crosshairs of the horn craze. You know, that absurd belief that grinding up rhino horn will either cure diseases or make your love life more optimistic. Despite decades of warnings, conservation plans, and enough awareness campaigns to fill a football field with pamphlets, the Western Black Rhino disappeared. Officially declared extinct in 2011, it left behind nothing but bones, a few blurry photographs, and a silence that even the birds don't seem to fill. It's gone. Not maybe hiding in a forest, gone. Not rediscovered by a lucky researcher, gone. Just gone. Erased quietly, completely, and with no encore. And if that wasn't depressing enough, let's talk about the Northern White Rhino, a creature that feels like it was written by a particularly cruel screenwriter with a taste for tragedy. These were the graceful giants of Central Africa, closely related to the more numerous southern whites, but with their own style, slightly hairier, slightly rarer, and infinitely more doomed. Today, as of this very second, there are 2 Northern White Rhinos left. Just 2, not 200, not 2 dozen, 2, both female. Both living under 24/7 armed guard in a Kenyan reserve, like 2 A-list celebrities on a very somber vacation. Their names are Najin and Fatu, and before you ask, no, they can't reproduce naturally. The last male, Sudan, died in 2018 and was given a farewell more emotional than most state funerals. He was mourned globally, not because we knew him personally, but because with his death, a line that had lasted for millions of years was brought to the edge of a cliff. Now scientists are scrambling like caffeinated magicians to bring the species back through IVF, stem cell tech, and frozen sperm that's been chilling in labs like a biological time capsule. They've harvested eggs, created embryos, and are hoping to implant them into surrogate southern white females. It's basically Jurassic Park, except instead of dinosaurs, we're trying to save something that already existed. And instead of cloning a T-Rex, We're just hoping not to lose one more oversized lawnmower. But this isn't just a rhino problem. This is an everything problem. Take the cheetah, for example. The fastest land animal, capable of accelerating from 0 to heartbreak in seconds, is racing straight toward oblivion. With less than 7,000 left in the wild, they're losing ground to habitat loss, shrinking prey populations, and the unholy trinity of poaching, politics, and poorly placed fences. One genetic study even suggested cheetahs are so inbred they practically count as clones. They're not a species anymore. They're a very stressed-out photocopy of one. The problem is ecosystems don't fall apart all at once. They unravel. First, the apex predators go, then the grazers, then the scavengers, then the insects. It's a domino game where the dominoes don't make any noise as they fall. But by the time you notice, the floor is empty. And rhinos? Rhinos are keystone species. They're not just decoration on the savannah. They shape it. Their weight flattens paths through dense brush, making way for smaller animals. Their grazing patterns prevent overgrowth. Their poop, yes, their poop, distributes seeds and fertilizes the land. It's not glamorous, but it's vital. Without them, entire microhabitats collapse, like a tent with its central pole yanked out. What's both hilarious and heartbreaking is that the rhino isn't dying because of natural selection. It's dying because of human stupidity. The horn is just keratin, glorified fingernail. It has no proven medical benefits, no magical powers, and absolutely no business being more expensive than gold. And yet here we are, watching multi-ton animals vanish so someone can stir powdered horn into their morning tea and pretend it's helping with their midlife crisis. But if there's any comfort, it's this. Extinction isn't always final. Not yet. Conservationists armed with science, drones, boots, and undying stubbornness are fighting back. Sanctuaries are breeding survivors. Scientists are trying to reverse engineer lost species from frozen cells. Communities are beginning to see value in keeping wildlife alive, not just as a tourism attraction, but as part of their living heritage. There are rays of hope, faint, flickering, occasionally trampled by bureaucracy, but still, they're there. Some reserves now operate like fortified castles. Inside are southern white rhinos, black rhinos, and even a few highly guarded Indian and Sumatran cousins. Outside are rangers, fences, drones, and in some cases war zones. It's not pretty, it's not natural, but neither is extinction by poaching. If we can build space telescopes, clone sheep, and send memes to Mars, surely we can keep a few giant herbivores alive long enough to see their grandkids roll in the mud. The rhino, in all its armored, awkward glory, has become a living paradox. It is both powerful and helpless, ancient and endangered, comic in its clumsiness and tragic in its fate. And in the end, maybe the reason people cry over rhinos isn't because of what they are, but because of what they represent. The fragility of survival, the absurdity of loss, the ridiculous idea that something so big, so loud, so legendary could just disappear like it never mattered. But it does matter. It has to. Because once the rhino is gone, it won't just be a species lost. It'll be a reminder that we, with all our intelligence, innovation, and influence, failed to protect one of the easiest animals on Earth to spot. We couldn't miss them. We just didn't care enough to act in time. So the next time you picture the African plains, imagine the ghosts that once walked them. Imagine a Western Black Rhino silhouetted at sunset. Imagine the soft huff of a calf beside her mother. Imagine what was and what still could be, if we choose to fight for it. Because while ghosts may haunt the grasslands, it's not too late to keep the living from joining them. Still here? That means you definitely owe the rhinos a like. Smash that thumbs up like a charging rhino, hit subscribe so you don't miss our next wild ride, and check out more of our documentaries before extinction beats us to it.